Hey mate, today we're going to take mushrooms and make them even tastier, and here's how.
Let's go.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to dive into two of my passions, foraging and fermentation. Today, and don't turn the video off, sounds a bit minging, but it's going to be a fermented mushroom pate where you ferment the mushrooms for about 3 days and then make a delicious pate. Perfect for vegetarians, perfect for vegans. But first, I'm heading into the New Forest to turn my hand to foraging. But if you're like me and a novice at foraging, or you don't go foraging, this recipe is perfect with chestnut mushrooms and field mushrooms from the shop. So you can dive in and grab some of those. But here's my little trip to the New Forest. You can see what I found. If you're not interested in that, just skip forward to the epic mushroom recipe. Today we're here in the New Forest. And it's the perfect day for looking for mushrooms. This cool September day, the ground still really moist after a week of heavy rainfall, has an array of different mushrooms for any fledgling forager to find. But in early September, it still takes a keen eye to find those fungi. But I always find after a heavy rainfall, there's always little mushrooms sticking out of horse manure. And of course, it's great fun finding varieties you haven't seen before.
Can you eat those?
You can eat those. And you can hear my wife, she joined me on this journey out into the forest and she was astounded by the variety of mushrooms. And if you haven't seen a beefsteak mushroom before, it actually bleeds when squeezing. It's got a kind of red gelatinous top. When you cut it in half, it looks just like a steak. It doesn't taste like a steak, it's kind of got a citrusy flavour to it. But in the world of foraging, beefsteak carpaccio is definitely a thing. And of course, if you are going out foraging and you're new to it, the golden rule. Don't pick anything that you don't know exactly what it is, and certainly don't eat it unless you're 100% sure. Even when I'm 100% sure, I still put it back and I think, oh, I don't know, do you risk it or not? But if I think that in my head, if I'm gonna think about risking it, then I don't do it. Shame, because I did find a lovely beefsteak just then in the video, and I'm like 100% sure, 99.9% sure that is an edible, but I still left it, scratching my head. And for me, foraging is very similar to fishing. You might get something, you might not. But when you do find it, it's that excitement of actually getting something decent, getting something you recognise, and getting something you can eat. Just no fishing rods and no water. But exciting nevertheless. And one of the beautiful things about foraging is the fact that you're getting back to nature and walking around the countryside while having a hobby at the same time. And the New Forest hosts some beautiful scenery and some beautiful wildlife, especially the ponies, big hairy pigs, and deer walking around as you're foraging. And here we found the first steps of the season. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll find some more. But as we get into autumn, there's a bigger array of mushrooms every time we go into the forest. Just like these massive prehistoric looking brackets. Okay, let's jump into the recipe. Fermented mushroom pate. Sounds horrible, tastes incredible. Okay, for shop bought mushrooms, we're going to start off with 250 grams of chestnut mushrooms and 300 grams of flat field mushrooms. Now, I like to peel these flat field mushrooms. This way you get the nice soft flesh and you can keep the skin just like this for future use. Next, take 2 banana shallots, peeled and thinly sliced. Banana shallots are this shape, shaped just like a banana. Then you're going to want 2 cloves of garlic, peeled and thinly sliced. I find the easiest way to peel a shallot is top and tail it, cut it in half, and that way the skin is just easy to remove. And then once they're peeled, I cut them thinly across the grain. This helps the onion shallot to break down nicely in the pan. Now we're going to take the field mushroom and we're going to thinly slice this too. You want them nice and thin so they're going to cook down nice and fast. but we're going to blend it so size isn't a massive issue. And now taking the chestnut mushrooms, we're going to thinly slice those too. Using the knife skills and keeping it safe, cut the mushroom in half and then slice it thinly. The flat surface stops the mushroom rolling away and makes it easier to cut. Now, why keep your mushroom trimmings? Well, for me, I keep them to turn them into a mushroom stock, and then I take that mushroom stock and I reduce it down into a beautiful mushroom glaze, which supercharges any mushroom dish. Or simply just turn it into a nice mushroom soup. And in this golden age of expensive food, you get more bang for your buck and you get 2 dishes for the price of 1. A mushroom soup and a mushroom pate. And for me personally, I like to pop that little stem out of the field mushroom. A little bit tough, a little bit chewy, but makes a great soup and also adds the flavour of mushroom stock if you get a glaze out of it. And if you're going to cook with mushrooms, then there's one alcohol that works beautifully hand in hand with mushrooms, and that is a nice Madeira. This recipe also calls for a nice olive oil, so I'm going to get a nice mushroom truffle olive oil. That's going to work really well with the mushrooms. Once everything is sliced, it's time to get it into a bowl. Now the great thing about this recipe, it sounds really snazzy at a dinner party, but it's really easy to make. First off, we're going to add all the mushrooms into a bowl. And now to season the pate and help with the fermentation process, we're going to add 1 tablespoon of table salt or kosher salt into the mushrooms. And also to season it, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of soy sauce. This is going to help the umami flavour of the mushrooms. Next in, 50 millilitres of that beautiful truffle olive oil. And now for that Madeira, I can't hesitate enough on how well Madeira works with mushrooms. And look at those guns. If you're cooking them, marinating them, it's a marriage made in heaven. And for this recipe, we're going to need 25 millilitres of Madeira, and we're going to add that into the mushrooms, which will help break down the mushrooms. And next up, another great partner for mushrooms, freshly picked thyme. For this recipe, we're going to go for about 2 tablespoons of fresh thyme leaves going into that mushroom mix. And now it's time to get the hands dirty and get mushing. It's time for that salt, soy sauce and Madeira to really start breaking down the enzymes in those mushrooms. It's time to go Thai massage style. Nice, hard, firm squeezes to break down the mushrooms into a nice pulp. Surely one of the best things about cooking is getting in there with your hands, feeling the textures and just giving it a good squeeze. Now, if you've seen my other fermentation videos, like sauerkraut, you've seen this is a great little device. It's a little rubber nozzle that goes on top and helps all the carbon dioxide leave the jar, so you haven't got to burp the jar daily and the jar doesn't explode, etc. And now we're going to spoon that mushroom mixture into the jar. Make sure the jar has been through the dishwasher and it's nice and clean. You don't want any bad germs in there. And once all that beautiful mushroom is in there, get all the juices in there, you're going to need that liquid to push the mushrooms down and cover the mushrooms. And now it's fermentation time. So I'm using the back of a clean spoon here just to push all that mushroom down underneath the liquid. And then these jars handily come with a nice glass weight to keep the mushrooms below the liquid. And this is really important when you're fermenting things. Oxygen is your enemy here, and you want to keep the food away from oxygen to help it ferment nice and safely underneath the liquid. It releases carbon dioxide, which is released through that nice little rubber cap at the top. And it comes with this nice handy screw top lid. Just screw that rubber top in place nice and firmly, just like this, and there we go. And now we're just going to leave that to one side at room temperature for 3 days to ferment nicely. And after 24 hours, you see a nice amount of liquid coming out on top. Now, on day 3, we're going to strain off that liquid from the mushrooms and keep the liquid. Take yourself a nice heavy bottom pan and add 50 grams of butter, vegan butter, vegetarian butter, and then once that is started to foam, add the mushrooms into that, and then we're going to cook those mushrooms down. You want to cook the mushrooms for about 10 minutes in this pan, using a tiny wooden spoon. If you know, you know. And a little bit like cooking a chutney, once all that residual liquid is gone, you are ready for the next stage. Stage 2 is to add all that fermentation liquid back into the mushrooms. This is packed full of mushroom flavour, and now we're going to cook this down for a further 10 minutes until all that liquid is gone. And for this, hard boiling is completely fine. So the house is smelling amazing at the moment. The aroma coming off the mushrooms, the sweetness and the Madeira. the kind of richness of the butter. It smells absolutely amazing. Probably has to be one of the best things that I've ever cooked with mushrooms. The smell is just incredible. The natural liquid that is then going to go into a blender. We're going to blend it up to this nice and smooth, and then we're going to pat that down into a nice little dish, smooth it off, and then that's going to go into the fridge. But it's not finished yet, and once it's in the fridge, I'm going to show you what to do next. Once all the liquid is gone, it's now ready to go into the blender. Placing the whole contents of the pan into the blender, we pop on the lid, lock it into position, and hit frappe. We're looking for a really nice smooth pate for this, not coarse, nice and smooth. So on the Ninja blender, it's got a puree setting, so I've hit puree. If your blender has the same, if not, just keep blending it until the pate is nice and smooth. Once smooth, remove the bowl from the blender. I still can't get over how good this recipe smells. You need to give it a try. Right, we're going to take the blade out of the blender, and now we're going to spoon the content of all that mushroom into a nice ceramic dish, ready to set in the fridge. Any dish you have to hand, but you'll see in a minute why this is a good container, a good dish to make the pate in. This recipe is going to take the pate nearly to the top of the dish, which is just perfect. Now we're going to use the back of the spoon once again to smooth the pate into an even surface, nice and flat, ready to go in the fridge. Now this little dish came with a nice ceramic lid, so we're going to pop that back on to stop the mushroom pate drying out. If you haven't got one, give it some cling film and then get it into the fridge. 4 or 5 hours later, or overnight, we're going to now make some butter to go on top of the pate. So taking a hot pan, we're going to add 100 grams of vegan butter, vegetarian butter or normal butter, and now we're going to flavour that with fresh thyme, some garlic olive oil, some truffle oil, and by gently stirring the pan like this, we're emulsifying all those different fats and oils together and infusing the thyme flavour. Now taking the pate out of the fridge, we are going to spoon that flavoursome thyme butter on top of the pate. Where it's nice and flat, the pate will just sit and give an airtight seal to the pate. This one adds a nice rich flavour to the pate when you're scooping it on toast, and 2 gives an airtight seal to the pate, giving it a longer shelf life and sealing in that flavour. Now lifting it carefully so it doesn't spill, that's going back in the fridge till the butter sets. And here it is, toast is in a toaster, pate is ready to go. Smells delicious, looks delicious. And just look how easily that spreads on a nice toasted bit of sourdough. The butter running through the holes of the sourdough and the pate smoothly spreading over the top. Smells unbelievable. And here we go. After 3 days of fermentation, the mushroom flavour has been ramped up. It's like mushrooms on steroids. Smells incredible. That thyme butter is kind of like soaked into the warm bread, into the warm sourdough. Smells delicious. I'm a big fan of that. If you like mushrooms, this fermentation process has added loads of flavours of complexity. It's like dialed up the volume on the mushrooms. It's made it super tasty. The sweetness and the madeira is really coming through. It's working with that salt that's in there, the salt and the mushrooms and the sweetness of the madeira, the background flavour of the onion, shallots, the shallots and the garlic. That's mega tasty. Very pleased with the results. Try it at home. Let me know how it goes. And please remember, if you like the content, please give me a like, give me a subscribe. It really helps the channel grow. I love making videos. I love sharing my recipes with you guys to get the best flavour out of all the foods that are all around us. I appreciate the watch. If you got to this stage in the video, thank you very, very much indeed. A massive mushroom thumbs up. I'm going to carry on eating this. And while I do, if you like this content, then I'm sure you're going to like this video next. This is my now most popular video. This is my fermented hot sauce. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Go check it out. So good.